Welcome to my kitchen where we will be baking today for 9 hours straight. So welcome back to everyone, and welcome if you are new. We are going to be doing a lot of baking today, but first of all we had to get this kitchen cleaned up. I always like to start with a clean slate, so the countertops needed to get cleaned off, wiped down, everything needed to be just put back into its place or put in the dishwasher here before we could get started. So we are doing that first of all before we do anything else. We're also going to replenish my water for sure before we get started here. I have been trying to drink more water. It's been kind of a struggle, and so we're going to try to do a little bit better here on that as well. And thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and if you do, make sure that you are subscribed and turn on the notification so that you will be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now we are moving on to getting started with mixing. We're going to start with some chocolate chip cookies. We're going to get these mixed up, and then I'll put these in the refrigerator to cool down while we do some other mixing and get everything else put together. So first of all, we're going to get our sugars and our butter, and then we are going to get that mixed up really well, and then adding in our eggs, and then mix that up again. And I like to mix this up really well until it turns a nice light color, and then we can start adding in all of the other ingredients like our soda, salt, vanilla, and everything else. I'm going to switch over from the whisks to the big, like the bread hook. It's actually a bread dough hook, but this works a little bit better when adding in the flour so that it doesn't mess up my whisks. And then last but not least, adding in chocolate chips. I'm going to be adding 2 bags of the milk chocolate and then 1 bag of the white chocolate. Sometimes I'll do all white chocolate, or yeah, you can kind of mix it up however you like. I'm going to just get it out in this big bowl and then set it in the refrigerator to cool. Moving on to our next cookie of the day, and this will be Whoopie Pies. So I'm going to go ahead and mix these up, and then we'll get to start baking these. So I'm trying to definitely do some multitasking today to get all of this stuff baked and put away in one day. In the background, I'm also doing some laundry and getting some tumblers engraved and things, so I'm kind of in and out of the kitchen. While I'm mixing up this, of course, I mixed up the chocolate chip cookies earlier, and then I'll do some multitasking while these cookies are baking, just to kind of cram everything into one day. And then once these cookies are mixed up, I'm also going to get these out of the bowl and put them in another one so that I can mix up my next thing that we're going to bake. And then I'm going to get started with baking the cookies before I start with the next item. So starting out with a clean dough bowl here, we are going to be doing bread, so we won't need the all-purpose flour anymore. And then of course just checking on the cookies, getting those out, putting in a new pan, trying to get everything done here, and then just cleaning up my workspace a little bit over here before we start with the bread. So we're adding in, we did the water, now it's the oil, and then we'll add in the honey next. So this is a honey wheat bread, so there will be a little bit of wheat, but it'll be mostly white flour. And for anyone that has been asking, this is the yeast that I use. It is an instant yeast. Adding in the yeast next, the soy lecithin, of course the salt, and then we'll get that mixed up before we start adding flour. While that is mixing, I'm just going to wipe down the countertops over here, getting all of that chocolate whoopie pie dough off of there. And now just adding in a little bit of the wheat flour, and then the rest will be the white flour. And now this is specifically bread flour. And I don't actually measure my white flour. I know I get this question all the time, how much flour I put in. And I've been baking bread for years, so it's kind of hard for me to tell you how much to put in because I just kind of go by how it feels and how it's mixing. So I've never actually really measured the flour for sure. But you kind of want the dough not to be sticky anymore, but you also don't want it too tough. So you kind of have to practice a little bit and find that happy medium. And while the dough is mixing in the background there, I'm just going to keep going with my cookies here in the foreground, trying to keep everything going. So my bread dough is still too sticky, so I'm just adding a little bit more flour and then mixing up really well. And then I'll check it again here in a little bit and just keep checking and adding a little more flour here and there until it is right. And once the cookies are cooled off, I'm going to go ahead and just get them frosted and get them sandwiched together. Now I have bought-in frosting here that I bought a while back for my Whoopie Pies specifically, which just makes it so much easier for me to get them frosted if I don't have to make frosting yet. And this is really good. We love this frosting, so it works out great. So I did finish up the bread. This is a little bit later here. This is after the bread has been put out and it has risen to double size. So we skipped a little bit of time there, but I am ready to put out the bread now. And I'm just dividing this into 8 loaves and then kind of dividing the dough evenly into each loaf so that each one is the same size before I start putting them into the pans. And I'm just kind of rolling them up on the countertop and then tucking everything in the bottom and making them nice on top before I put them in the pans. And then the last thing, I'm going to just punch them with a fork just to keep the air bubbles to a minimum. And here is the bread almost ready to put in the oven, so I'm going to go ahead and kind of put the whoopie pie dough away for now, and then get these last pans baked, and then I think the bread will be ready to put in by then. And then we'll kind of take a break here with the cookies while the bread is baking. And then also while the bread is baking, I'm going to go ahead and get all of the chocolate chip cookie dough put out on pans. I'm just putting them into the dough balls. That way they are ready to go and ready to put on the pans later when I'm ready for them. We're going to be baking 4 of our bread loaves at a time, and then I'm just putting them into the oven for 25 minutes. And then while those are baking, I'm going to just kind of keep going here with the cookies, getting what I have baked frosted, and then put out the rest of the chocolate chip cookies in dough balls, and then just kind of clean up here, kind of catch up with a few things while I have some time while the bread is baking. And now the bread is ready to get out of the oven. It is smelling really good in here at this point, as you can imagine. So we're going to get that out, and then we will top it with some butter, and then put the next batch of bread in to get baked. And in the midst of all the chaos, I'm going to start one more thing today, and that is some granola bars. I had some marshmallows that kind of needed to be used up, and some Rice Krispies that were kind of sitting around here. So the best thing to make that I could think of was some good granola bars. So we're going to do that in the midst of everything else here. I'm just melting my marshmallows in my butter and oil, and then I'm going to add in the honey as well as some peanut butter here in just a little bit, and then keep mixing everything together, get everything well combined. And then we're just measuring out our Rice Krispies into a separate bowl, as well as some coconut. You can kind of add whatever you want to here. Some chocolate chips if you want to. I added some white chocolate. And yeah, if you want to add in like some graham crackers or something like that. kind of whatever you like, what your family likes. And then we'll add in our marshmallow mixture and get this all mixed up. This was quite the challenge. I made too big of a batch. Again, I do this every time. So it didn't really fit in my bowl right to mix it up in there. So then I decided to just dump it out into the big pan and try to mix it there. I didn't have enough butter on my hands, so this was a disaster as well. But I did finally get everything mixed up, hands and all. So then I just went ahead and separated out into 2 pans, washed my hands really well, and then loaded up on some butter to get everything spread out and patted down like it needed to be. Now that the bars are in their pans, I'm going to just let them rest here for a little bit, putting away kind of my mess here, just getting a little bit more cleaned up. Now that the bread is done baking, we can start with our chocolate chip cookies. So now that they are all in their dough balls, I can just put them out on the pan and put them straight into the oven. And while those are kind of baking and I'm watching those, I can go ahead and get started with cleaning up over here at the sink, get everything stacked into the dishwasher that I can, and then go ahead and hand wash the rest of the dishes. Some of these big bowls and things needed to be hand washed, so we're going to go ahead and just clean up as we can. This always helps so much, I think, on a baking day to clean up as much as you can as you go. That way you don't have that big mess once you're done with your baking. Before I put my bread in the freezer, I always like to slice it. This just makes it so much easier once I go to get it out than to use it. It's sliced and it thaws out a lot quicker as well. So I'm going to go ahead, just quickly slice them before I put them into bags. And then Chloe was putting them in the freezer for me as I got them sliced. I'm gonna go ahead and just cut up my granola bars, and I cut them in fairly small bars just for the kids, that they don't waste a big bar if they aren't able to eat it all. So I kept them pretty small. You could definitely do whatever size that you wanted to, whatever works for you. And then I am going to individually wrap each one. This makes them nice to have for on the go. They can grab them and go with them. It does take a little bit longer to do it this way, but it always makes it so much nicer. starting with the floor over here, I decided to go ahead and start sweeping and getting the floor cleaned up. It was a disaster. So there was all kinds of crumbs and whatnot on the floor. So we're gonna get it cleaned up over here in the dining area, get everything mopped, and start with getting that cleaned up. Here are the little bars once they were done, and as I was getting the last pan of cookies out, I was super happy to have the baking done. Now I just need to let them cool off, and then we can get everything bagged, put away, and get the rest of the kitchen cleaned up. I ran out of containers for all of my cookies and things that I was baking, so I went ahead and just bagged up the rest of these cookies. This works fine as well. Once that was done, we can go ahead and get the rest of the floors mopped and cleaned. So that was my day of baking for 9 hours. I am super happy for everything that we got baked today. It was a kind of a long day for baking, but I hope you enjoyed coming along with me, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.